Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are, and thank you very much for joining us. My name's Matthew Crabb. I'm the CEO of QA Media and our information platform, QA Financial, www.qafinancial.com, has a focus on the marketplace for software quality assurance services for financial firms and for financial apps. I'm very pleased to introduce this seminar today, which features Edie Olemdo, who's in charge of QA at BankUnited, a Florida-based bank, and Edie will tell you a little bit more about her role and BankUnited when she joins us in a minute. And I'd like to thank our sponsors and co-hosts today, Softec, and Alberto Montufar and Ernesto Davila Delgado will be introducing themselves also quite shortly, and they'll be able to tell you a little more about Softec and what Softec does. And clearly Softec has been working with BankUnited in BankUnited's digital transformation. And the core topic that Edie is going to be focusing on in her conversation with Alberto and Ernesto is how BankUnited has adapted Agile working practices to suit the requirements of its own particular transformation. And of course, there's a bigger picture to all this, which is the critical role that QA and testing and the faster delivery of better apps can play in the competition between established local and regional banks and their new challenges, the new platforms, the neobanks, the fintech companies. It's not simply that better apps are critical to competitive success. It's also the way in which potentially established banks can turn technology to their own particular advantage. So I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation today. And we do want you to join it. This is really important. This platform has really good Q&A functionality. You'll see to the right of your screen, there's a live Q&A button. If you click on that, you can post a question at any time, and we can see it here, and we can either address it immediately, but we will be leaving 5 minutes or so at the end of this session, which will last about an hour. For Q&A, and we really do encourage you to ask any questions that you'd like to, and also to share perhaps observations of your own and your own experience. That'd be very welcome. You will also see, if you click back to the main menu, you can visit Softec's information booth, their virtual booth at this event. And you can message Softec and ask for a meeting, talk to one of their representatives live, and you can also download videos and other white paper content from the booth simply by clicking. You'll also notice to the top right of your screen, there's a help button, and one of my colleagues will help you if you have any problems. Google Chrome is the recommended browser for using with this platform. It does work with other browsers, but if you are having a problem with your connectivity and your experience, try using Chrome instead. Now that's about it. We will, as I say, be leaving time for your questions at the end of this session. And by the way, Softec's booth will be open for about half an hour after the session ends. So there's plenty of time for you to meet Softec and talk to their representatives. Now I'm going to ask, well, I'll hand over to you, Alberto, perhaps, and you and Ernesto can tell us a little bit more about Softec, your relationship with BankUnited, and perhaps a little bit about what you'd like us to cover today.
Outstanding. And thank you for co-hosting this with us. We're delighted to be here. Ernesto and I represent Softec, our colleague Edie Olemdo, who I believe, Edie, are you with us yet?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, excellent, outstanding. The person of the hour has joined. So, Edie, we're delighted to have you here. I think for the audience, once again, good afternoon. Good afternoon and or good evening, depending on where you are and which time zone, or good morning if you're out in the Hawaii time zone area. We wanted to cover with you and share with you a little bit of the story of the partnership that we've developed with BankUnited as a partner of SoftTech, or the other way around, which is BankUnited selected us as a partner of for their SQA function, and speak a little bit to that journey through BankUnited. A little bit of background on the relationship, and I'm going to actually set the stage for Edie to speak to her experiences and how we started this activity and this journey. BankUnited is located out of New York City, New Jersey, and Florida markets. They are a regional bank, one of the largest bank in the Florida market segment. They've gone through a significant transformation effort the last 3 years, from a senior leadership CEO change to a new CIO office, and like everyone else on this forum, a whole digital transformation effort that includes, and not exclusive to them, a digital transformation for the retail platform, for their payments, for the treasury services. It's a journey that they're on about. They're also migrating to the cloud. They've also implemented tools like ServiceNow. They really are going to on the cusp and have rebuilt their entire IT organization. Edie and us, we started this relationship in Q4 of 2018. All right, it feels like ages ago, and we'll talk to you. But I want to set the stage for Edie. So Edie, thanks again for joining us. When you joined BankUnited, give us a little sense of your background and how did you inherit the SQA area, and when you were hired, what were the ground rules that you were given at BankUnited?
So, well, first of all, thank you all for having me. The relationship with SoftTech continues to be a very enjoyable one. Through our relationship with SoftTech, I've also learned a lot of new things. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I'm Edie Olemdo, and I'm the VP of Software Quality Assurance. I have 40 plus years of experience. So I started when I was 10. And I came to BankUnited. And when I was interviewed, David Ralph, who is my boss, he is the vice president for software engineering, said to me, well, you know, there is no formal SQA. That's why we want you to come here. I said, okay, do you have any tools? And he said, no, we don't have a tools. We're just about doing the evaluation on a tool. Okay. Do we have any resources? No, we don't have any resources. Do we have a budget? No, we don't have a defined budget for SQA. And I said, I'll do it anyway, because for me, a challenge is an opportunity to learn something new, to start something new. Now, if he would have told me that the commute from where I was living to Miami was an hour 15 plus each way, I might have reconsidered, but I didn't. And I started. When I started, the great thing about working with Julio Jogaib, who is our CIO, and David, is that they gave me the opportunity to create a vision and a mission for the organization. And so I was supported and I was empowered by the company to build something together with them. And I started by developing a 30, 60, 90-day vision, mission statement, and a strategy that would take us to where we are today.
All right, excellent. And Edie, as you were building that vision and that strategy, you spoke to me when you were doing that activity about recruiting internal talent. How did you go about recruiting internal talent to build that capability? What did you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when we started, David asked me, how do we start? And I said, well, I have to start and I have to meet you where you are. And so what I did was I did a business case because I knew that I needed resources. and I did a business case to determine who was actually doing the testing, right? Because life existed before Edie. I don't know if it existed before David because he's been there for 13 years, but life existed before I got there. And I did an analysis and I found out that 85% of the work was being done by the business analyst. And in doing so, the business requirements were taking a hit because they could not focus on what they were hired to do, which was business requirement gathering. And they were doing all the testing. And so once I received the names, the list, the investment, as I was building my business case, I started building relationships. And I identified the people with the subject matter expertise in the organization and those that had the relationships. And then, for lack of a better word, I targeted that, right? I went on a recruitment journey to bring them into the fold and to gain their confidence. Julio then said, if you can convince, and David, your peers, to allow you to transfer these people into your organization, then we can make it happen. And so it took me over a year of doing a campaign. I was on it, 6 months to do a campaign to get that transfer over, to show the value. And eventually I was able to get 5 people on board. And they were dedicated because of their subject matter expertise and their relationships to certain core business lines within the organization. And that's how we started, right? And that's how we created our framework and our organization.
And Edie, at the time, go ahead, Ernesto, please.
Thank you, Alberto. Edie, I think you had to take a lot of important and key decisions. And when we first met, one of the decisions that you have already taken was the selection on your test management tool. And at that time, I remember that you asked us for advice on that decision that has already been taken. But what I found very interesting is that you had 2 choices 3 years ago. One choice was to go with the King market tool in that regard, in that area for test management. And the other one was to choose the tool that was better fit in that moment in the industry to support Agile projects. So at this point of time, it's clearly that you made the right choice. But at that time, it was an important decision. So I think it's important for the audience to understand what was your thought process and what was the reason you made that decision.
Right. And that's a very good point, because 2 of my major challenges, right? No resources. And you're right. I came in and they were just about to pull the trigger on the purchases of ALM. And I spoke to Julio and I said, would you allow me to do another evaluation? Because you're asking me to inherit. Alberto spoke about what was I inheriting. And I did not want to inherit a platform that was not going to be successful. So at the time I did the analysis, because I said the good thing about being older and senior is that you have all the experience behind you. So I knew all the products fairly well. I had come from an ALM organization. I understood that legacy and that product was not going to fit into the culture or the maturity of BankUnited at the time. And so we chose to go with Q-Test, owned now by Tricentis, and Eggplant. And those were the 2 choices that we made. At the time, we looked at I always look at Gartner, and they were looking to reach that quadrant, right? That magic space where they can become the leaders in the industry. They weren't there yet, but in doing the analysis and getting the feedback from Soft, also knew where they were headed and how they were going to be positioned. The other good thing about our partnership with SoftTech is, even though I had selected these tools, when we started talking, SoftTech said, Edie, we are tool agnostic. Therefore, we will support you and meet your needs where you are. So that was good. The next thing that I did was hire 1 software engineer. I was allowed also to transfer budget. There was an open rec that they were going to either use it or lose it, and no one was filling that. So I was allowed to take that, and I hired 1 software engineer to help me bring the platform on board and install all the tools and get through that. And that happened in December, and by February we were up and running.
Edie, What's interesting is, if I recall, to echo back to the time frame, you were also getting pressure from your business partner that were starting the digital transformation program, and they needed QA resources, a full team. Can you share with the audience some of your thought process to bringing in a partner to help you augment your capacity with your existing team as you were building that capability for BankUnited?
Sure, absolutely. So as we started to build out the organization and the framework, I had 5 FTEs, and I used to call us the little engine that could, right? Because as people started seeing that we were adding value and requesting us to help them with their different testing activities, the demand grew. And so along comes digital banking. And not only did the digital banking executives say, we need a very robust, quality assurance in place. This is going to be audited. Therefore, we have to make sure that we are audit ready. Julio said, I'd like you to engage. So out of all of the pieces to decide to do a proof of concept with a new partner, I chose digital banking. It had high visibility. And what I told David and Julio is that I can't do it with the resources that I have. First of all, you have to be honest with what are the skill sets that you have on your team that will allow you to be successful. Mm-hmm. And so matter experts, they were brand new to being SQA analysts, right? So they were in training, they were learning as they went. So we partnered with SoftTech and we said, let's do a pilot for the first version and deployment, which was our friends and family. That's where we were headed towards. And we brought in 5 core resources. We also discovered that at BankUnited, we still didn't have the maturity to do performance testing, and that became a very key component. So we not only added our functional testing, the processes and the framework to support it, supported by our tools that were also brand new to the organization. And we partnered with audit to ensure that we were taking the appropriate steps in terms of documenting our evidence, the framework that we had developed in partnership with SoftTech, that it was blessed and we were ready to go. And so we obtained those 5 core resources that, for me, I'm excited to say are still with us today. And when we talk about those 5 resources and we talk about digital banking, no one knows that they are contractors, because what I like to say is we are SQA, we're software quality assurance powered by SoftTech, because with the little engine that could, I would have never been able to accomplish this. So this is a team accomplishment.
And Edie, that's a very interesting. Sorry, Alberto. Edie, that's a very interesting point, because right now the attrition in the industry, it's a very big problem, not only for service providers but also for customers. There is a high demand for talent right now in the market. So it really amazed me, the fact that in an industry where the trend is to have attrition numbers around 30%, from 25 to 30% in major companies, how have you managed to have internally an attrition rate lower than 7%? I mean, what do you think it's different from other engagements? Or what is different in your recipe for success to keep that talent very engaged with BankUnited?
Yeah. So BankUnited is a phenomenal place to work at, first and foremost, right? We have a culture that is inclusive. We are very collaborative. We are very family oriented. It used to be a mom and pop shop type of feel that is now growing, right? And increasing. When we brought SoftTech on board, one of the ways that I operate, it's not you and us and them, it's a we all the time. And so everyone on the team is included, whether you're a contractor or an employee. There are some restrictions, obviously, for obvious reasons, but in everything, I make our team feel as we are one. I also, whether you're a contractor or an employee, I try to find the value and the potential in you as a person and an individual and help you develop that. And for me, one of my passions is being a mentor, is helping others really achieve that potential. And so they all feel as they're one. And so, and when I go to bat, I'm going to bat for my team. There are instances, right? If you are in quality assurance, you have to have a very thick skin. You can't have an ego. But as a team leader, I'm there to protect, nurture, educate, sometimes push, sometimes annoy my team, but we are one. And so I treat them all equally. And that makes them want to stay, right? They feel wanted, appreciated, valued. And at any given time, I make sure that the organization knows the value that each individual brings. So if it was a great deployment, I highlight that and I celebrate their successes.
Edie, I want to bring you back to your digital transformation program in the context that I believe, for the purposes for the audience, that was the first real Agile effort that BankUnited took on. Can you speak to that activity and the Agile? Because I understand you also have a second role that you played in the organization as part of the Agile coaching. Can you talk about that and how you're bringing SQA in supporting the transformation program, but bringing in those practices to really make sure that you're delivering? And some of the key metrics that you saw from starting with the first sprints to perhaps where we are now with sprint 50 plus, on samples of that?
Yeah, sure. So for us, Agile is a mindset, right? And it helps you manage uncertainty. So first you have to wrap yourself around thinking in a very agile, flexible way. And we facilitated that through frameworks. So initially, as part of the SQA program, we did a lot of education. When I joined in 2017, David had started what we call a grassroots. And so to participate with him on that journey. And what we were trying to do, because no one knew what Agile was we took a top-down approach where we were looking for commitment and support from, first of all, from our direct executives, right? And our senior managers and from our CIO, and then a bottom-up to ensure adoption. So in every project that we participated, and we're moving towards products, but currently at the time it was project based. I ensured that I brought that standardization, right? So that I could optimize it, that we brought in the education. So we had to teach them, first of all, what is quality assurance and what they're going to get. And then started to infuse training and boot camps around Agile, just to build the awareness. We've trained over 400 employees in the organization. The second hat that you refer to is it's a privilege to have been named the product owner for the Agile transformation at an enterprise level at BankUnited. And it's a group of five, it's a team of five, of which David participates. We have two folks from the business that report directly to the EVP of Digital and Commercial Banking. And we also have our VP of the Project Management Office with us. Along with that journey, we hired a coach who has just been phenomenal in creating all of the training that's become part of our journey. All of those components, awareness and education, and then activating people within the teams. So if you have been trained and you're a certified Scrum Master, we activate you into a team that you're familiar with. So in every project we are now participating along with SoftTech in over 37 initiatives or projects, and they're identified over 100,000 and below is an initiative, 100,000 and above is a major project, and we have a lot of major projects on our table. So we include ourselves. We look for that Scrum Master, project manager who wants to transition and train them. And so we start infusing those projects and those activities with that Agile mindset and those Agile ceremonies where possible. Not all our projects are Agile. We're still working some waterfall, some Agile, and some hybrid, right? And so
That's right. So your service model from a QA perspective you've adapted to be able to support the 3 different flavors of projects as the organization is evolving and the culture is changing. Specific to your digital transformation program from a resource perspective and the demand there, what kind of metrics were you using to drive the discussions with the development and the third-party partner? Because this is a full integration of multiple components and products. And there's a mindset in the marketplace that I buy a component, I buy software as a service, I really don't need to do a lot of testing. How did you face that challenge of shifting that mindset so that people continue to see that?
So the one thing that you could do that doesn't cost you anything is shifting left. And by shifting left is introducing quality assurance at the beginning. And so one of the things that before the Agile, before I was blessed, was I convinced everybody, we need to start with you. We need to partner with you in the beginning. So we shifted left, and therefore we understood what the needs of the project were and what the customer was looking for as the end result, right? So we always, customer satisfaction drives everything else. So in doing that, when we shifted left, we were able to introduce and understand what are the needs of each project. When we look at a project, and currently we're shifting to the product model, we look at whether or not that project is better served in a waterfall methodology, right, or framework, or in a hybrid, or in an agile. And then we adjust accordingly. Now, in order to resources on board, what we do is, because we partnered with SoftTech, we look at the resource allocation and understand what are the needs for that specific project and what is the talent that we need. For us, in the past, we have been doing those estimations. That's part of our demand management process. We've done those estimations, rule of thumb, 30% is critical, 15%, 10%. SoftTech provided us a calculator that is based on a formula. We input the data on the project, whether it's work streams or components, the functionality, et cetera. And that gave us the ability to determine how many resources, and look at, and then sit with our engagement manager, who has also been critical. I don't do anything without Isis, I will name her, as our engagement manager, to look at what is the skill set that we need. And so that's how we were able to provide that flexibility. So we need waterfall, it requires X. We need agile, Y, hybrid, Z. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. I think the other thing for your audience, I think it will be beneficial to appreciate that not everything is rosy. So if I recall, when we first started with your digital transformation for the mean time to complete the testing cycle was measured in weeks. And there was a lot of push from your business partner to reduce that window. And there were 2 key elements that I think you drove. One was automation. So I'd like you to speak a little bit about how your thought process behind how the automation framework was executed. And the second one was the reporting and the cadence around those reporting to drive the critical discussions around the quality of code and redesign and retesting, because some things didn't work as advertised, right? So can you share with the audience a little bit of those reporting and those metrics and those discussion points? Because there were multiple parties too involved at that table.
Yeah. So let's talk about not so rosy, right? And so the first challenge that we face is that the development work was not being done internally. It was done by a third party vendor. And when we introduced the quality component into the digital project, they saw it as we were pointing fingers or highlighting their defects, right? Because one of the key metrics was, first of all, we're all about preventing defect leakage. So on a daily basis, we have, and we produce to the audience, and that group had over 47 members that will receive this report. and we would highlight how many defects we were encountering, right? Because the whole goal was to get to UAT fairly clean so that we can then improve our performances. We were doing all of this manually. So one of the key metrics was, of course, lean time, defect, the quality of the product, defect leakage, prevention, etc. And all of the usual ones that we do, your burn rate, right, etc. So if you go to any of the key Agile metrics, you know that you want to measure velocity, right, and all of that. So when we started, so that was very difficult. And our most difficult moment was when I asked for transparency on the vendor's part. And when we pulled it up, we were looking at 1,900 defects that we needed to manage. And so I found that to be a great thing because I wanted them to understand that this was awesome, because now we needed to prioritize, right? Now we knew where our pain points were and how we can further develop with quality from the beginning. And then, so it took us, quite frankly, 6 months. That I'll get on. Again, at that time, we were on a 4-week delivery cadence, right, for sprints. Once we all became one team, and I came with the same concept. We are one team. This is not about you doing something wrong. There's many reasons why a defect happens, but it's not because you did it on purpose, right? So let's get to the root cause and let's try to fix it and help you. And I want to help you identify that defect before our customers do, right? Because at that point, it's a bad customer experience that we don't want them to have. So we went from 4 to 3 to 2, and now we're on a 1-week cadence. And this is 2 years later. So we took, when we looked at what we could automate, there was no automation. We asked for a target of, we talked about it, and in partnership with SoftTech, we said, what's a viable target for us? And we said 65%, right? Because if anyone tells you that you can automate 100% of your test case inventory, they're not telling you the truth, or they don't understand what it takes to automate. They don't understand the criteria. So we said 65%. Today, we have automated 87% of our test cases. We have close to 525 test cases in our inventory. And for those that we have not been able to automate, it's either because there's a process that interferes and we can't simulate that process. It's a manual intervention. It's a touch point that we can't reach, or because there's no value in that automation piece. We also introduced performance testing, right? Performance wasn't there. Right. And so they were pressing us to do performance. And we said, we cannot do performance until our environment is stable and your code is stable. Otherwise, when we detect an issue, we have to double our research, not understanding, is it the environment? Is it because the code is not good? And so we got into a rhythm where after every UAT cycle, there is a performance run and cycle that's done, also comes with its own metrics. And again, that is a subject matter expert on the team that is assigned specifically for that. Does that answer?
I wanna comment on some of the automation piece, because you mentioned the importance about the flexibility to be technology agnostics, right? And when we have the challenge for automation, we always focus on ROI, return of investment, right? We want to automate something that really is going to save us some time in the future, and not just because of the hype of doing automation. But I remember that the challenge that we have is the coverage. We have to do automation for all web browsers, for many mobile devices. We did a study, we did the research of your user base to determine which were the mobiles, the platforms, either it's iOS or Android, and the specific models that your user base was going to use. So I think at that time we have to make a decision that was move away a little bit from Eggplant to introduce the custom Appium automation framework from SoftTech to integrate the best of both worlds, right? And I think that that's something important, that we have to avoid to be married to just one solution or just one tool, because at the end of the day you might end up losing the opportunity to do very good things with other technologies or platforms. And on the performance side, I remember that one thing that really caught our eye is that we benchmark your response times against your competitors, and we present that report and said, you know what, this is the opportunity, the opportunity gap that we have to close to make sure that end user experience tomorrow, when those users access either through a mobile, through a browser, through their desktop, they find the best possible experience. So I think that was also a good challenge, because internally within the organization they didn't have the usage metrics, the performance metrics, so we had to do those benchmark. And now what we have in hand is that whenever you need a new release, whenever you need to add new functionality, you have that benchmark, and you also know how your competitors are performing, and because of that you can plan your improvements based on that.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, because once we perfected the automation process, our frameworks and our methodologies and our tools within the digital banking platform experience. Currently, we have included automation. First of all, it's part of the cycle of everything that we do. And so we have included that. More importantly, we did some I did some ROI analysis for Julio and our newly joined CTO Michael Lembeck, to show him what the benefits of automation was. And I'll give another example, not related to digital banking, is every time we have a signature core release and upgrade, that particular upgrade touches 40 application integrations, and it involves 50 users having to do a validation. And they were always behind. And we were challenged with closing the gap on the turnaround for those upgrades. And so the technical team came back and said, we think we could do it in 8 weeks. And of course, our CIO is always challenging us, which I love. He said, 8 weeks is unacceptable. I want it done in 4 weeks completed. And we said 4 weeks is a stretch, right? Because the other thing is you have to be realistic. Well, bottom line is that we have been able to just run through all of these upgrades, and it's giving us 2 weeks a window to make any corrections where we're done and completed. So we took from involving 50 users to 5. In one of the areas, in one of our lines of business, they reduced their headcount by 2 because that person was strictly focused on doing testing, right? And so that person took another opportunity within the bank where they can truly add value and didn't have to be, part of that, just that testing event. So a lot of people started to get excited because they no longer had to do this, right? Because they had the automation. And then we moved just to validating what was the output, validating the results, being part of the process, but not stuck to a timeline. We just had another sidebar release. And very difficult also, a very large, for the treasury, very large group of people that are involved. We were able to complete that. We didn't even tell the users that we were going to be ahead by 3 weeks because we didn't want them to take the pedal off the metal, right? The foot off the pedal. And so when we did the last, we're 100% completed in our execution coverage, they were in shock. So now they were able to do 2 upgrades in the time that they were scheduled to do 1. So that's all. Excellent. Because we cut our teeth, yes, with digital banking, but because we proved that it would work, we've been able to promote it to all of the other areas. And excellent. Just recently, Julio sent out an email saying that automation is a must for anything that we look at, for all our product initiatives going forward. It's a huge piece of 2022. And we're planning for it currently. And so for the team, it's that's, for me, that's a great accomplishment. I'm like a proud mama. It was great.
Edie, I want to segue the conversation to spend the next 5 minutes on the regulatory climate and the compliance requirements for banks. And clearly, BankUnited has to adhere to a number of regulatory and compliance and audit requirements. Can you speak to some of the things that, in your mind, with the discipline that you brought in with SQA and the partnership with Softic, how has that positioned you to respond, position yourself better for audit requirements, compliance requirements, including an example of America Disability Act, which is a key element of your digital retail product strategy?
So one of the things that I also have an audit and compliance background from my previous lives, doing a lot of the quality assurance work, specifically with pharmaceuticals, right? Or reinsurance and insurance agencies. So I was accustomed to a lot of regulations. The first thing that I needed to do was build a partnership with the audit team. And so I met with them, and what I wanted them to do is to review the framework that we had built right? So that it would be applicable to all the areas that they were looking at. So we had a framework blessed by the audit team. And so anytime there is a delivery, I sit with them because I know that I'm going to have to walk them through the audit readiness from the testing perspective, which includes all of the evidence gathering. And within that, we also meet with our risk and compliance group because there's parts of our testing evidence that cannot be exposed, right? So there are different components within BankUnited in terms of staying within regulatory compliance, whether it's internal or external to our external partners. So we were able to do that. And anytime I have any pushback, I have the backing of the audit group, right? And so with confidence, I can say, you must do this because this is required for you to be audit ready. And let me help you, or let's speak to audit and see if there's any flexibility. I've also been able to work with them on the Agile side and the Agile mindset in terms of what audit is looking at for the projects. But when we have a project or a delivery that is regulatory driven, that takes precedence. And because we're in the scalability model, I can shift the team over to work on that aspect. So that's how we deal with that. In regards to digital banking and ADA, our reporting was all inclusive, but what I did was I asked Softic to provide me with 2 dedicated resources specifically for ADA testing. And when I was asked why, I explained to them that there are communities out there that their specific job is to look at websites and determine if they're ADA compliant or not so they can get sued. So it was a legal liability. And so I was trying to speak their language. They understood it, and I have a dedicated resource. So when we get code delivery through the digital platform, not only do we run it through the functionality, the end-to-end integration, etc., we also look at it specifically from the ADA compliance point of view. So that's
excellent. Hey, let me compliment something that I heard you talk about, you and David, which is we helped you create a template for waiver, right? As you decided that you want to do testing, you put in place a waiver process that needs to be signed by the product owner or the business owner and the CIO function.
Yeah.
Has that helped, prevent people from deciding, I'm not doing testing, I'm not including in my budget? You seen the proper use of that as a tool?
Yeah. So the
Okay.
request from Julia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a request. Julia said, I want to know who's using your services and who's not and why. Because I that we're in everything yet, right? 2022 is going to be a total explosion. So if we had a lot of work this year and last year, it's probably going to quadruple because people have started to see the benefits. And the benefits are reflected in what your defect leakage in production. So he asked us to put this waiver. We work with Softic on creating this template. And the waiver is if there is a delivery in the value and you don't want to use SQA services, you have to project about why don't you want to use us? Who's doing the testing? And oh, by the way, although you're not going to use us, what's going to be required for evidence gatherings, right? So washing our hands and saying, we're not going to help.
Right.
You said it, that you can you don't need the help. So we've done that. We for 2022 a reverse waiver.
Okay.
We are requested to work on the project, and there's no budget allocated. I can't do it, right? I don't have the resources. And then either they need to talk about finding the resource, how valuable is that to them? But at least accountability is to the IO. Full picture. I can't participate. This is where I would start. But it's a two-way waiver.
Edie, that's an excellent way to end. I want to if you could spend 1 minute talking about what's next for you in 2022. We'll close with you there, and then Ernesto and I will do a couple of closing remarks so that we can spend the next 12 to 13 minutes for any Q&A from the audience, okay? So what's next for you in 2022? What do you see your future there in SQA at BankUnited?
So I'm looking to continue to grow the partnership. I still only have 5 FTEs, and 2022 is looking very large in terms of what we're going to absorb and the work. I am looking forward to in my role as a product owner for information. I want to be doing Agile, do Agile or be Agile. It has different flavors, right? In some areas we've adopted processes, but the there yet. I want principles and the values accommodate change, and so my goal is just to continue to empower to do doing to educate and build awareness around. It's not just a buzzword; it's the only way that we're going to stay competitive in this marketplace that we're delivering, and just looking to more friendships along the way.
Okay, and I think I've heard you talk about the fact that given the digital transformation, it's even more imperative given the conditions that we're faced with COVID, with people working remotely, and your business model of really targeting small business, treasury services, payments as a service, and then continuing to support that business model. So I think automation, you told us, hey, I got to drive automation in 2022, and we have a portfolio of work that we have to do with you. So we're excited about that. I'm going to turn it over to Ernesto. Ernesto, any closing remarks from you?
Well, just talk a little bit about the plans we also have for this partnership, for this account. We have already talked and agree with Edie that we are gonna do a proof of concept for Frida ITA, Intelligent Test Automation Solution, that incorporates artificial intelligence technologies such as machine learning, deep learning, analytics. We are very excited about the opportunity and the possibilities that these type of technologies bring us for QA and especially for automation. Just it's amazing the possibility to talk about to automate the entire testing process. It is something that we have been dreaming about it, but we have to verify which is the right project. And as we have gone through this change of minds in adopting Agile, we also have to do the same way for AI. So that's something that we're going to be working with Edie's team. And well, that would be from my side, apart from thanking Edie for her partnership. And that would be, Alberto.
Excellent. I want to do a little bit of closing in the next minute or so. And I think Matthew asked me, what are the key takeaways that you could share with the audience? And I'm going to give you 3 that I think are relevant that synthesize what we've done in the last 45 minutes. I think first and foremost, any of the SQA activities in any organization must be internally led. This is not something that you delegate. And you need to have the individual that has the leadership, the experience, the accountability, the empowerment, and the passion to drive SQS services across their organization. There's absolutely no substitute by leading this by example, right? That's the first one. The second one that I think it's key is it needs to be a partnership. This is not a vendor relationship, because this is not a body shop model. You need to have individuals that are committed to the success of the delivery of the work that is being done with the client, as part of the partnership, and can act and execute as an extension of that organization, right? And so number three, the last one, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes discipline, it takes commitment, and it takes the partnership. And there's absolutely no, in my mind, the substitute for delivering incremental results and consistent results day in and day out, quarter to quarter. You measure, you adjust, and you redefine the approach. But it's a dual commitment. And I want to finish by the three key elements. It's process, it's product, and it's people driven. On behalf of SoftTech, we want to thank you for listening to us. I want you to know our mantra at SoftTech is we're big enough to deliver, but small enough to care. All right. So rest assured, if you become our partner, you're going to get that customer care and that centricity of you being a partner of ours. And team, thank you again for hosting us. We're going to turn it over to the audience for questions the last 9 minutes.
Yes, well, we've had several questions, which I'll sort of moderate. Thank you very much, Edie. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Ernest. That's been a fascinating presentation. We've got several questions, but to focus on the remaining time we have, I'm going to merge and conflate some of them. First of all, 87% of your, I guess that's your functional testing automated. That's extremely impressive. And I guess, do you have an impression, Edie, of where you stand versus similar banks, your peer groups? I mean, do you benchmark yourself against your peers?
So we do, and that's when we started. When the study of SoftTech through the analysis across the industry.
Mm-hmm.
The target really depends on your and your capability, and so that's where we came up with.
Okay, a couple of things that you haven't mentioned that one or two people have asked about. You haven't mentioned the cloud. You haven't mentioned data management. You haven't mentioned. Sorry, these have come up in different questions. Containerization and virtualization technologies. I know that will be a whole another presentation, but do your plans for 2022 include significant changes there that you can tell us about?
So all of this is why we were mature. Our SQA, all of those things that you've spoken about and mentioned, were also coming on board. Last year and a half, our project and the SQA team to AWS and cloud migration. So that happened simultaneously. We've developed new platforms. We're looking at a new payment platform, right? So all of those things are running concurrent. Cloud initiative, huge, all by itself. And again, that's embedded to work in.
Great. Now, you mentioned your background in audit, and you mentioned the increasing demands of compliance. You specifically mentioned the Americans with Disabilities Act and accessibility testing, critically important. I wonder if I could ask you, do you sense that regulators are increasing their scrutiny of the way in which banks are managing their quality processes and managing quality assurance? And does this impact on the decisions you make about whether you use Agile, waterfall, or the hybrid alternative, in the sense that more sensitive apps, more regulatory sensitive apps perhaps need to be tested and assured in waterfall, for example, and are not suitable for the Agile working practice?
So the components of that question, you said COVID-19 has changed everything. Demand has become greater. For example, for the banking PPP application, that in an agile form because we needed to have without the integrity and the quality of the delivery. Time restrictions into what we need. So it's a yes and no question. How did we determine that needs to be agile? Because there was no way that we could do it in a waterfall capability. The good thing is that at that time we were doing agile and being agile, and it came up. They had enough information to be able to make that shift. In terms of how audit is looking for compliance, that's shifting also. The way that traditional audits were taking place are changing, and we're that progression, right? And we're because they're telling us what is the demand within their organization. Supported, but it is shifting. It's not that traditional like when I was at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. It has changed in all areas, and again, the banking industry is no different.
Now, we always get questions about AI and machine learning. We've had a couple, and Esther, at the following your presentation, mentioned that this is something that's on the agenda for 2022. Can you give me an example, Edie, of where you see machine learning making a difference to the way that you manage quality? I mean, would it be, for example, in visual testing of mobile apps, for example, or is there one thing that you feel you can achieve in 2022 with machine learning in your testing and quality management that you can share?
So I'm going to perspective, and then I'm going to ask Ernesto to technical perspective. BankUnited is that we're just maturing and evolving, right? In terms of any type of automation other than your automation pieces, etc., we've introduced RPA processing, and so that in it's helping us the and where that's headed, slower pace. And I've had this conversation both with my boss and with Julio, because we need to have the maturity to be able to support it, right? So it's not only the technology coming on board, is do we have the subject matter, do we have the capability? Is that pilot, because it's in a controlled environment, assess if we're ready. It's all about readiness. It shouldn't be this buzzword or hot thing in the industry. You're going to use it and fail in your organization, you're wasting your resources, you're wasting. I would not promote that. Also, do you want to fail now, fast, fail faster? Or do you want to fail $5 million later? And so, unless you have something to add to that.
Yes, Edie. Well, just Matthew, the value proposition of our Frida ITA solution is to really augment the productivity of our testers, because we see how valuable and how important is their functional knowledge. So where we are putting in their hands is this platform that help them to increase their productivity, because the platform is going to be able to directly from their user story identify in an autonomous way what are the test cases that you need to test for that particular functionality, and in automatically those test cases will be converted into automated test scripts. So again, you are merging or combining the best of both worlds, the functional knowledge of your QA professional and this powerful platform that will enable you to have an increased coverage. We have a dream, which is basically, for years we have said, and we believe that it's in fact a basic testing principle, that exhaustive testing is impossible, Matthew. But we believe that with this type of technology, perhaps we would be able to increase our coverage for a big chunk of work.
And to add to that, so we have a very solid baseline for the POC that we want to utilize, and therefore the data is there. right? So we can look at it fairly quickly if this is going to give us the ROI that we're looking for. So, but it's still, Matthew, it's still early, and we're still working on it.
It's really interesting. You've covered an enormous amount of ground for us, Edie, in just an hour. We're bang on our scheduled 1 hour. I do appreciate your joining us. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alberto and Ernesto, for co-hosting. Your booth will remain open for half an hour or so. And just to remind delegates that if you go back to your timeline by clicking top left, you can visit Softtech in their booth, download some white paper content, and find out a little bit more about some of these technologies we've been discussing. Edie, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.